Then comes the important part, and that is to understand the simultaneous tendency to engage. I mentioned that. The reason we're doing this analysis is to try and find out where in the process we can gain access to what's happening and break the cycle and free the mind. We know we can't free the mind from the appearance of thoughts because they are involuntary. They are going to appear. In the beginning, the tendency to engage is going to be compulsive. That is, I feel driven to engage. But a compulsion is not as strong as an involuntary action. So we start gradually working with the compulsion. And this is where our mindfulness training starts changing the state of the mind. We sit there, we continually witness the appearance of thoughts, feelings, moods, and mind states, constantly witnessing. And as we do this, we become very clear about content of the undercurrent, which I've said is coarse thought. We become very clear about that. So you'd spend day after day, hour after hour, just sitting, observing the appearing of thoughts and the passing of thoughts. And then you become more and more aware that that's not all. You become aware of the tendency to engage. Then, through your insight training, you begin to recognize that tendency to engage is driven. And it's driven by what I call the subliminal reflex. And this is the key to the whole show. The subliminal mind is this layer of consciousness just below the mind we're using at this moment. It's the part of your mind that is picking up information non-intellectually. It's absorbing information. Like, how many of you could describe the atmosphere in this room at the moment? How many could do it? You don't have to, but just could you? How many of you could describe the atmosphere in the dining room today? How many of you have met somebody and got a feeling from that person? Good feeling, bad feeling, neutral feeling. Yes? How many of you think you can read body language? How do you do all that stuff? It's subliminal. That is the activity of your subliminal mind. It's picking up information at this more subtle level. Subliminal. So one of our big areas of perception is subliminal. And the tendency to engage is driven by a subliminal reflex. Now how this works is, within the subliminal mind there are a whole lot of little reflex mechanisms. You all know what a reflex is, don't you? You push a button here and something happens there. And the subliminal mind is receiving information all the time, and that information is triggering these reflexes. And the reflexes click switches that present you with commands. So, for example, let's get back to me and my rejection complex. If I walk into a room and everybody doesn't immediately turn and smile at me, my subliminal picks this up and says, these people are rejecting you. And that triggers a subliminal reflex that says, now you've got to feel rejected. And that is why I feel rejected. There's no consciously thought out process. I don't think about it. It just happens. Can any of you relate to that? Can you see in yourselves how these work? And this is why I'm neurotic. All our neuroses are triggered by subliminal reflexes. Now, although the subliminal reflex is mechanical, that is, it only requires an external or an internal stimulus to trigger into action, so it's mechanical. It controls the whole show. It produces the reaction that carries the weight of authority. So the essence of the subliminal reflex is, now you have to feel this way. Now it has to be like this. And this is why sometimes you may see yourself reacting in ways. While you're reacting, you realize, this is ridiculous. Why am I feeling like this? Why am I doing this? But it's full on. Have you ever had that? I'm still reacting. So you can see that the subliminal process overrides reason. It overrides intellect. It overrides intelligence. It is so powerful. And that is the characteristic of reflex. It has no intelligence, it's a mechanism. And it's got the force of habit behind it. But with the subliminal reflex, it's got the force of habit plus this message of, I am the authority. This is how it now has to be. And if you're given to something like depression or anxiety, you wake up in the morning, the subliminal reflex is triggered, you woke up feeling quite peaceful and happy, reflex is triggered, now I have to be miserable, and it has to be like this forever. There's a reflex that also says that. Not just now, but forever. This is why we can say, as human beings, we are liars, and the biggest lies that are told are the ones we tell ourselves about ourselves. And they are triggered by these subliminal reflexes. And because they're happening subliminally, we go on and on and on buying into them. And we go on and on being the way we are. Now this is one of the absolutely key areas of insight training. To expose subliminal process. And then to identify subliminal reflex. And once you begin to identify your subliminal reflexes, your whole experience of existence will start to change. You'll really start discovering what freedom of mind means, because you'll suddenly see how the mind enslaves itself. And you don't go and address the consequences, you don't go and try and change the undercurrent or anything like that, you just address the reflex. You just look at the reflex and you realize, I don't have to do this. That's all it takes. That realization, that changes the whole story when that subliminal reflex is exposed.